welcome to another booktube video from me, Lauren, from Lauren and the Books. I hope you're all doing very well. If you're watching this video and you're thinking, well, Lauren seems a bit dead behind the eyes today, it's because I'm on my period and this is day 3 of period pain now. Had a bath, had some tablets, still not feeling better, but what do we have to do? We just have to get on with life, don't we? Even when we're in excruciating pain. So if there's a few moments of me sort of just, you know what's happening. Today's video is my mid-month wrap-up. So this year I've been absolutely bossing the reading. So far I've read 51 bloody books. We're only halfway through March. So what I've done in both January and this month is split my reading wrap-up into two. So I do a mid-month wrap-up, just because otherwise at the end of the month, imagine me trying to wrap up like 15 books. You'd be by the end of it. So 7 books I've read so far. I'm filming this on the 14th of March, so about halfway through the month, and I've read 7 books. Yeah, and I'm going to talk to you through those books. Now, the reading plans for this month were the Irish Readathon and to start reading the Women's Prize long list. Both of those things have commenced, so we'll just kick straight off. So the first book I started the month off with is A Ghost in the Throat by Dorian Negrefa, and this is what the front cover looks like. Absolutely beautiful front cover. Read it on my e-reader, got it out from Libby. I didn't like this, guys. It was just so literary for me. I just didn't really feel like I ever connected with it. The narrator, so it's part sort of like novel, part essay, part memoir, and the narrator, you're following her sort of like an experience she has as a young mother, and a sort of terrible time she has of that, and that happening, and then sort of like becoming a mother, being a mother, etc. So that's all happening now, and then you're looking at her looking into the life of a famous Irish female poet in the 1700s, and I just couldn't really get like a sort of grip or a hold on anything aside from sadness, and it just felt so sad to me the whole way through, particularly the bits about motherhood, and like, yeah, it just, there was just no joy in it. And I don't necessarily need to read books with joy in them, but this just felt so flat and so sort of like stamped on, that I just couldn't get a hold of anything. When you were looking into the research she was doing into this poet in the 1700s, there'd be sort of like maybe glimmers of something where I was thinking, oh, actually, no, maybe we're getting somewhere, and then it would just not happen. And also, I think I'm not an Irish reader, and there's a lot of Irish poetry in here, and I think if you are an Irish reader, then that must be lovely to sort of read along the poetry and maybe get more of a feel for everything that's actually going on in this book. But yeah, for me, it just wasn't for me, and I gave it 2 stars, but realistically I think probably 1 star. I think I upped it to 2 stars because there was glimmers of it in the when she was doing her research where I was thinking, oh, maybe I will enjoy that. So, but the next book I read I enjoyed slightly more, and I gave 3 stars, and that's Ansha by Una Min Kavanagh. Ansha translates in Irish as here, I believe, and this is a memoir of Una Min, who was adopted from Vietnam at the age of 4 days by her mother, and then brought back to Ireland. And this is a sort of like a memoir of Una Min's love for Ireland as a country and her love for the Irish language, which just shone through in this. Honestly, like, her love for the Irish language was just so lovely, and the way I connected with this much better in terms of the Irish than I did with A Ghost in the Throat. But like throughout the book she has like little boxes which has like sayings or words, and then the Irish translation, and I understand, like, from reading this, is that this is something she does on Twitter now. She sort of puts like an Irish language saying of the day, and they're all sort of like, let me just read you some of the ones that are on there. Oh, I can't find any of them. Don't postpone joy. We're celebrating our newfound freedom. I was eager to start. Nostalgia for the past. There's no fat without labour. So all sort of things like that. So, and it was an absolute, like I said, a sort of her pouring her heart out about how much she loves the Irish language, which was lovely, and actually made me think about languages myself. And one of my goals for this year is to learn a bit more French. I did French at school only until I was 16, but I've always sort of understood more French than I've been able to speak, and one of my goals this year, I think, is to, well, the eventual goal is that I'd like to be able to read a book in French, as I understand, a lot more sort of like written down, and I've been doing a bit of Duolingo every day, and I'm going to start listening to some French podcasts. I'm going to watch Call My Agent, which is something that I've been meaning to do anyway, which is a French speaking show with subtitles, and I thought, oh, this will help. And also David wants to watch Amelie, and I haven't watched that since university, and I remember watching it with sort of joy, just loving it. So yeah, anyway, so this sort of like led to me going and looking into maybe learning a bit more of a language that I already know, which was lovely. And yeah, like I said, like her love for the Irish language just shines through, but also what shines through here is her love for her grandfather, who is this guy here on this on the front cover. I love this front cover so much, and it was just lovely to hear about that, and her relationship with her grandfather, and how much he loved Irish, and how much like they had in common with that. And both of my granddads died when I was quite young, so I don't have any sort of like coming of age stories with them almost. I believe I was sort of like 7 and 9 when my granddads died, but I'm seeing my dad become a granddad at the moment. I mean, albeit over bloody videos and FaceTime, but that's a lovely thing to sort of recognise now as well. So I really like that. Now what I will say is it's not like the most beautifully or literary written book ever, but I still really enjoyed it. There was one thing that I didn't enjoy, and towards the end, now she's quite, it's like she's got quite the following on Twitter, and there was a lot of reference to, oh, and this got this many retweets, and I've got this many followers, and da-da-da-da-da. And that sort of thing just doesn't like impress me that much. It don't impress me much. It didn't impress me much, and it just felt like, after pages and pages of like how much she loves Irish, and a love for her granddad, and these beautiful photos of sort of like her being adopted and things like that, and then like the last section was just basically this got this many retweets, and this got this many retweets, and things like that. So yeah, that just pulled away from me for it. But I really did love the book itself, and Una Min's commentary on what it's like to be seen as an other, even though she is Irish and growing up in Ireland, and what it's like to be seen as an other, and like people trying to catch her out by like saying like Irish things that they wouldn't think that she'd know about. And also, I remember her saying like her granddad had told her that one of his friends had said, well, what are you going to do when she grows up and she can only speak Vietnamese? Like, you just can't, and obviously that's like from many years ago, but you can't even believe that people ever had these thoughts. Yeah, so gave it 3 stars, but enjoyed it very much. Oh, also there's a lot in here about a racist attack that Una Min suffered in Dublin in 2012, and a sort of movement that started on Twitter after that. So impressed by this. Next up was 6'6" by Kit de Wall. This was a short story, one of the quick reads that you can buy for like £1. I read this on my e-reader. Kit de Wall is the author of a book that I love, and David loves, and my mum loves, and my sister loves, and like I really love it. And they're making it into a TV show this year called My Name is Leon, which I read many years ago, and then reread it, listened to the audiobook of it last year, and really loved it. Now, she's also written a book called The Trick to Time, which I went into sort of like with open-mouthed glee, thinking, well, I loved My Name is Leon so much, there's no way I won't love this. And I didn't really love The Trick to Time that much, and remember feeling a bit sort of flat and disappointed with it. And the same way that I also read Becoming Dinah, which is written by Kit de Wall and is a retelling of, I realise I'm just slumped in my chair here, which is a retelling of, or inspired by Moby Dick, which is a book I've never read, and I don't really know much of the things about it. And also I didn't feel like I loved that as well. But this sort of gave me all the same feels, and everything I loved about My Name is Leon was present in here. And this is a short story, as I said, about a young lad called Timothy Flowers, who has learning difficulties, and at the beginning of the novella is waiting on a bus route to see one of the new buses that's going around Birmingham, and a chap called Charlie he just falls into doing like a day's labour with a chap called Charlie, and then there's some sort of like, Charlie's got some money problems, and Timothy gets involved with sort of like helping him out with that. He's very tall, he's 6'6", yeah, I just really loved this, and it really made me smile, and like I wanted more. Like, this is, like I said, this everything that I loved about all the charm and warmth and hope that I felt in My Name is Leon was reflected here in this novella 6'6". So yeah, if you loved My Name is Leon, then definitely like this would be good. And also if you're looking to get into a new author and you haven't read anything, then this is a great starting point for an author. So yeah, 6'6" by Kit Dwell, gave it 4 stars, really liked it. Next up is, and I'm not going to talk much about this because this is my Patreon book club book, this is Don't Touch My Hair by Emma Dabry. This is a reread for me. I read this book last year, loved it, one of my favourite books of last year, and as I said, it's my Patreon book club book. The only difference this year is that I listened to it, so although I've got the book here, I listened to it, and it's read by Emma Dabry. However, saying I listened to it, I still sort of like flicked through and looked at the source material that they've got in here because I find it really, really like lends itself to the book. But yeah, love this as always. It's a really original way of looking at black history being retold through black hair. And yeah, it's not just a book on what I really love about this as well. It's not just a book on like history. It has like art, philosophy, maths, science, like sociology, like there's just a bit of everything in here, and it's presented really well. And listening to it told by Emma, she's just I mean, I say this every time that I listen to a non-fiction book read by the author, but they just deliver so much more. There's just so much pow in there. So yeah, loved it again, 4 stars. And then next up was The Tainted by Calvary Madavon. This is another Irish book for the Irish Readathon, and this was a sort of like, I've explained this as a gentle reading experience in the same way that I felt when I was reading books like the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Society, that sort of thing. You're set in 1920s in India, and you're sort of like looking at they're referred to in here as Anglo-Indians, but they're Irish Indians, so I don't know whether or not they were just referred to as Anglo-Indians, or if there's a newer way to call them, because I did see something on the back or on the front talking about another term you could refer to them as, Indo-Irish, but at no point in this book are they referred to as Indo-Irish. They're referred to as Anglo-Irish, Anglo-Indian. But yeah, so 1920s, there's a sort of like military mutiny going on, and I don't really know if I ever got to the depths of that, but there's also a love story going on there, and then there's an Anglo-Irish maid who's involved, and and I enjoyed that part very much, so much so that when we got brought forward to 1982, where you're looking at one of the people from 1920s, their grandsons, revisiting the family history, I was a bit like, oh, I preferred it in 1920, but I did get up to date with them, and there was some great characters in there. But yeah, I didn't feel like there was much coverage of colonialism in here. It was more sort of like just day-to-day stuff. There wasn't much like looking back into stuff, and as I said, I'm not really sure how much I understood the mutiny, but the book itself felt quite gentle and felt quite enjoyable, and yeah, I gave it 3 stars. And then the last two, oh yeah, the second to last one, this one I gave 1 star, and I really don't have that much to say on it. It was The Wren Hunt by Mary Watson, and I just found this so forgettable, like so much so that as I was even listening to it, I was forgetting things that had happened. You're following a girl called Wren. She's got some sort of magical powers. I believe she's an augur, which I don't even know what that means, but she's part of a sort of group of witches who have one set of powers. Then there's another group of witches that or like another group of magical people she's trying to infiltrate by doing like work experience for them, and and everything was just so convoluted with no sort of like nothing in order like for me to really enjoy it. So yeah, I gave it 1 star, and I really didn't know what was happening most of the time, and I think it's a YA book as well, so I was like, how am I not getting this when it's a YA book? But yeah, it wasn't for me at all. But the last book of the month, What a Banger, was the first book that I read from the Women's prize long list since it had been announced, and that's Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. So I had predicted that this was going to be on the list, and then when it was on the list I was delighted because obviously I got one right, but I already had this on my e-reader, and it only had 3 days left before I had to return it. So pretty much the next day after they'd announced it, I started reading Piranesi, and my god, I just got so swept up in it. This is like the most sort of unusual and original and sort of mind-bending, and like I felt parts of my mind opening as I was reading it. Just amazing. I don't really know where to begin with it really, because I don't want to ruin any plot points for you, but if I just say what it's about and then sort of like give you some more thoughts on it but not go deep into the plot. So what it's about is a guy called Piranesi who is living in these sort of like labyrinthine world with loads of different like rooms and halls, and they're on there's a sea and things like that, and he is the only person that is alive there, aside from somebody else, one other person called Other, who comes along to see him twice a week, and they share what they've learnt about the place that they live. And that's what you need to know in terms of plot. But actually other stuff that goes on there, it just took me on a completely different thing that I thought was going to happen, and I was sort of like open-mouthed glee as I was reading it. Now, bits that I loved, like there was just, I remember reading like an opening passage of it, and there's lots of statues in all of these halls and rooms and things like that. One of the first things that Piranesi says to you, and I was so endeared to Piranesi throughout, like I really loved him, and just really like felt so like I wanted to look after him. And he talks really early on about a statue, which is a woman who's got bit, or who's doing some like beekeeping, and one of the bees is on her eye, and he says, oh, it makes me feel funny every time I see it. And I just thought, oh god, that would make me feel funny. And it's just like details like that just really like drew you in. I just felt so drawn into this, and I've just never read anything like it. And like I said, like as I was reading it, I feel like another little door open in my mind and think, oh, is that linked to that, and is that linked to that? There is no resolution in this book, really. I mean, yes, I guess there is. Again, can't really go into details about it, but like I'm not really a big fan on like things not being laid out for me completely at the end, and that doesn't really happen here. But I just loved it. There was just so much sort of mystery making. It really felt like I was on a quest, and I just really enjoyed it. So yeah, great place to start. It was a really short book as well. I mean, it said it was 148 pages on my e-reader. I don't know how many that translates as an actual book, but my god, I thought it was amazing. I gave it 5 stars. Really loved it, and yeah, I can't see that not making my best books of the year, and also like hopefully it'll be on the shortlist, hopefully. But yeah, so those are the 7 books that I've read so far in March. As I said, there will be a second wrap up at the end of the month with more books that I've read. Let me know if you've read any of these books. Let me know if you've joined in with the Irish Readathon. Have you read Piranesi? Are you reading any of the Women's Prize? Would love to hear from you, and I'll see you all again soon for another booktube video. Now about to go and lie down on the bed and think about my womb. Bye.